set. Go live. Well, good evening, everyone. Hope you're staying warm on this frigid night. At least it's frigid out here in Colorado. See, software agents tuned in. Hello, guys. Let me see here. Oh. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for showing up. This is going to be a pretty quick stream. I was just very excited to share some updates I've been working on. Tonight's subject is going to be version 3 of the software. And we look forward to sharing some of that with you. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please put questions and comments in the chat. You can also send me some questions some other ways. On Twitter, my handle is Nantucket E-Books. I'm also on Mastodon. My handle there is Nantucket E-Books at fostodon.org. Please subscribe. Please become a patron on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Nantucket E-Books. And I'm also on IRC. And I've got some people on IRC channel now, which is pretty cool. So that's irc.libera.chat, and the channel is Nantucket E-Books. So if you have any questions, plenty of ways to send them to me now, and I will read them at the end of our presentation. Let's see here. So tonight's schedule, I'm going to review some of the accomplishments we've had in the past year. I'll be doing a recap of, no, I won't be talking too much about some of the past versions. If you've come back, you probably know what that's all about. I'll be looking at version 3 of Nantucket E-Books. I'll talk about some other updates that have been made to the platform and some of my plans for future updates. Just a second here. Okay. So, first off, big thanks to my patrons on Patreon, John B., Tom B., Marks W., and K. If you'd like to become a patron, please go to patreon.com/Nantucket E-Books. Yeah, it really does help me as I try to always make these ebooks better. So, a little recap of what's happened in the past 12 months. First big thing was I moved from self-hosting to a professional hosting service. For about a year, I was hosting Nantucket E-Books on a Raspberry Pi at my home, and that was a very interesting process, figuring out what is involved in hosting your own server. And probably the most difficult part is dealing with your internet service provider, getting a static IP address, getting it to point to your server and all that. And I actually gave a talk at Regis University about what's involved in self-hosting. And it's well worth it if you're interested in servers and running your own website. It's not too much big of a step to then run it on a server that you own. But I will say that it wasn't always reliable. Me dealing with it going down sometimes can be very frustrating. And I decided it's important that the site be always up, or up as much as possible. So I found going to the hosting provider I use for my personal website was the right way to go. So that was a big change. I've learned a lot about server migration. Then I was a speaker at LibrePlanet back in March, and that was a really fun experience. So LibrePlanet, if you don't know, is an annual conference that I believe is either hosted by or mainly sponsored by the Free Software Foundation, which is a group dedicated to promoting software that's free in the sense of freedom. And that was one of my big goals with Nantucket E-Books, is that it was very transparent and accountable. You could look and see all the software that was involved. Nothing was hidden from the reader. And I gave a talk about building an ethical ebook. And you can find that. I have it hosted on my YouTube channel, but you can also find it on the LibrePlanet website. It's about 45 minutes, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed getting to answer questions from people about that. And I hope to talk there again sometime. But it was really good it felt like, how do I say this? I felt really glad that I could share something about a movement that had given me so much inspiration. So that was back in March. I joined Mastodon, which is a social media platform you may have heard about in recent months with the buyout of Twitter. A lot of people left Twitter and went to Mastodon. I've really enjoyed my time there. I've met a lot of really great people, some of whom I'll talk about tonight. It's a very if you want social media that doesn't really waste your time, where you get to meet some nice like-minded people, Mastodon is one I highly recommend. I also joined LiberaChat. This is a new chat network dedicated to free or open source software projects, and I have a channel there now, hashtag Nantucket E-Books, and again, I found that a great way to just connect with people really quick. It's all text. It's like those chat rooms they had in the 90s. In fact, that's exactly what it is, and it's worked out really well so far. So all these things have helped me connect with people in very meaningful ways. And then, most recently, and what I'm most excited about is the first commercial ebook that has been released on the platform. And this book was Small Things, The Poetry of Allie Flint. Allie Flint was the poet laureate of a town called Lafayette in Colorado. Back in her day, it was a very small coal mining town, and she would write poems that got published in the local paper, and she did that for about, about 30 years or so. And she would write about weddings and holidays and the changing of the seasons, sort of the joys and frustrations of small town life. And I found her poems quite interesting. They had never been collected in book form before. So I did a lot of research and went through the old archives of newspapers, collected them, and I published the best of them. So what made it a commercial release is that customers could pay to have their name listed in the book, that they had been a supporter. I also had printed copies made, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And if you ordered a printed copy of the initial run, you could get your name listed in that as well. So I'm pleased to say it was a profitable venture. I didn't lose money on it. In fact, I made money. And I'm very encouraged with that. I think it laid the groundwork for some upcoming commercial releases on the platform. So I think it made me very excited on the publishing end, and I hope that's very exciting for authors using the platform. Let's see here. Okay. And you can view, if you want to read Small Things, the poetry of Allie Flint, I will put the link here in the chat. Let's see here. It's Nantucket E-Books.com/Allie Flint. I've been sharing that a lot on social media of late. So, let's talk a little bit about the progress I've been making on the software. Version 3. One of the big features of Nantucket eBooks that I really don't see anyone else doing right now is that the audiobooks can be built into the ebooks. There's full integration. If you're reading the ebook, you can bring up from the menu the audiobook edition, and you can play that instead. I was always frustrated as a reader that you have, your app for reading the book and then your app for listening to the book, and they were separate things. I always thought if there was a way to bring them together, that would be ideal. So Nantucket eBooks have the best integrated book audio experience of any ebook platform today, but I'm always looking to make that feature better. I think I can show you here how that used to work. Let's see here. We'll bring up one of my old books. Let's see. We'll bring up the Trash Man here. So how it used to work is that you'd open up your menu, and then you click on the cassette icon right here. And that would bring up this new window, sort of a window within the ebook that would have the audiobook player. And you'd have this interface, and you could play and pause, scan it forward and backward, and then if you wanted to close it, you hit the close button here. And I thought that was pretty good, but what's good can always be improved. And so that's what I've done. There's a completely new audiobook player for these ebooks now, and I'm very excited to show that with you tonight. So let's bring up one of our new books, a ebook edition of The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And I gotta say, talk about lucking out with this cover. This cover, this was for a science fiction magazine print of The Time Machine, and this is in the public domain. So it's this beautiful picture. You got the time traveler being attacked by the Morlocks, who are sort of the monsters in the book. And so yeah, it's a wonderful cover. I love the color in it. That blue in the background is just fantastic. You can see the numbers on the clock face here. Very stylish. Anyway, let's talk about the audiobook player. So you, the first thing you'll notice, you scroll down, you got your table of contents, and then here is the new audiobook player. You've got a drop-down menu. You can click, and you can select the chapter you want. We'll start with chapter 1. And then we have the player here. And this is the first big change. This is a standard audio element found in all browsers. So, you click play here.
Chapter 1, Introduction.
And
The Time Traveler, for so it will be convenient.
So you can pause it, and then you have your scrubber icons here. So if I want to go forward 15 seconds, jump me up to 42, jump me to 57, if I can go forward a minute. So that's all the same. And so instead of a custom interface, I've decided to be a little simpler to use the standard audio element that browsers support. So the first thing you'll notice is it's part of the book. It's not on that separate page you have to go to. So that's the first thing. Like, if you're a reader, you can listen to the audiobook while reading it. This is something people have been asking about for a lot. And so this will allow you to read while listening. Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw... I don't know why this is happening. I'm very sorry about this, people. I have to get that figured out. I'm very sorry. So, thank you for someone in the chat pointed that out. So I'll go back a little bit. If you look on the ebook page here, you'll see that the audiobook player is part of the ebook. It's not on. You don't have to go to a separate page when you click on it. So if you got a drop-down menu here, and then you have your audiobook player here, and this is using a standard audio element that is native to web browsers. It's not a custom audio interface. So that makes it a lot simpler and still quite, very usable. And so you can listen to the audiobook while reading, which is a feature that has been requested for a long time. Now, what if you were down here a ways and you're reading, and obviously you don't want to have to go all the way back up to pause it, for example. What you do in that case is that you have your audiobook icon over here to the left. And if I click on that now, it brings up, it like pops out the audiobook player. It takes it from up top, brings it down to where you are. And so then I can, so like if I was playing
All right,
it here,
said the psychologist.
close it.
Nor having
Keeps
only
playing.
length, breadth, and thickness can a cube have a real existence. There, I object, said Philby.
Oh.
Of course a solid body may exist, all real things, so most people think. But wait a moment. Can an
Here we are.
instantaneous cube
Can an
exist?
instantaneous cube exist?
Don't follow you, said Philby. Can a cube that does not last for any time at all have a real
So
existence?
I click again, and it brings it up, and I can pause it. So it'll go to wherever you are in the book. And, I can click on the icon again to close it, or I can click the close button and close it. So that's going to be a lot more convenient for people. Now, this is a little bit more technical. Another benefit to it is that the new audiobook player is being built by the JavaScript in this file. It's not usually we would hard code it into the HTML document. We're not doing that now. It's being built on the fly when the page is being loaded. And the benefit to that is that if you are on a text-based browser like Lynx, which is common if you have a visual impairment, it makes the page that's loaded in text only a lot cleaner. It doesn't have all the raw HTML for the audiobook file. So that'll make it much more accessible. Makes it a lot easier because I think this is going to be much more convenient that people can just bring it up like this. And of course, everything is very mobile responsive. And I can bring this up, and I can close this, and then I can close that. It's all very intuitive, I think. If you're not familiar with these audiobook players, they do have autoplay. So if I go to the very end here,
None of us quite knew how to take it.
what it's going to do is it's
I
going
caught
to
Philby's
finish
eye
this
over the
file,
shoulder of the
and
medical
then it
man,
will load up the next
and he
chapter.
winked at me solemnly. End of chapter 2. Chapter 3 of The Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
So if you're like listening in the car, that'll just autoplay for you. You don't have to be distracted and bringing up the next one on your phone. It's just like any other audio player. So I'm very excited about that. It's part of the book. You can pop it out when needed. Drop down menu. It's easier to use, better accessibility on text-based browsers, and it's simpler. And simpler software is easier to maintain and will give better performance in the long term. It's less likely to break down. The next thing I'll talk about, which I alluded to a little earlier, is physical books. I think it's important for authors on the site to know they have the option, in addition to ebooks, they can do physical books. So I've given quite a bit of thought in the past few months to how to do that, how you're going to take the Shanty markup language, which I use to write the ebooks on the site, and convert that into something you can make into a physical book. That's taken quite a bit of time, but I'm pleased to say that I've come quite a ways, and we've sent out our first physical books this month. The other aspect to it is that I feel that the sale of the physical books supports the development of the ebooks, since you can sell them at a higher markup, and that profit margin helps support working on making the ebooks better. I really love the quality of the text. It's all based on SVGs, scalable vector graphics, and if you don't know what those are, let's bring up small things here. So like up in the corner here, all of these icons are what are called SVGs. And they're scalable in the sense that if I make them bigger, they retain their sharpness because it gets redrawn at the higher resolution. You can make them small, so they're very flexible like that. The text for the physical books is the same way. It's all SVGs. So the text that's printed out from them is really clear and sharp. And I love how it looks. And I make sure to use higher quality paper. It's a 24-pound bond paper. And it has sort of an off-white color to it. So it's a lower contrast. It's a really quality reading experience. And I hope that everyone watching will get the opportunity, or has had the opportunity to look at it and appreciate it. The books are comb-bound paperback, and I happen to think that that's really nice, because with comb-bound books, they can lie completely flat. Yeah, I'm sure we all know with a paperback book, you got to keep the pressure on it to keep it open, and that can get a little tiring. Comb-bound books don't have that problem. And it formats everything properly. It's been a work in progress to take all the features of Nantucket E-Books and apply that to a physical book. But the progress has been really good on that. Another new feature is a new help button. If we go back to our ebooks here. Sorry, I just had to check that we're not... we didn't go back to the studio page. Okay, so if we go back to the time machine, you will see over here in the corner of our menu icons, there's a new one, and that new one is the help button. You'll also see that if I'm on a desktop and I hover over the icons, it'll display a little tooltip. I don't know if my broadcasting software is going to show it, but what you're supposed to see is like when I lay the cursor on it, it brings up this little this text. And so on the home button here, it says back to home. This one says jump to table of contents. This one is for dark mode, so it says toggle dark mode. So it explains, if you're on a desktop, what each of those icons is. And if you want some more explanation, you go to the question mark button. Click that, and that will take you to the site's FAQ page. The old FAQ page had become quite outdated, so I'm going to be updating it now. And one of the new things is this section of how I use the menu, and this will explain in this nice little table what each of the icons will do. So just trying to explain that a little more. And this will even work if you've downloaded the book for offline reading. Anyway, so yeah, just down here, and that'll take you to the help page. Now let's see here. Another feature I've added is view tracking. So now for ebooks, page views are going to be tracked on the site's server. And the way we do that is that if we look at a book like Small Things here, the file that gets loaded by default is has the title index.php. And PHP is a programming language for working with servers. So when you load the page, there's a single line of code that just sends a message to the server saying that someone has accessed this page. And then I have software on the back end that just adds, okay, so this is add a view to this. So if it had 100 views, actually Small Things has been our most successful book so far. And it's had well over 600 views. So I'm very pleased about that. So if it adds 600 views and you go to it, then it goes up to 601. So we're able to track the view counts on our ebooks. And that's great information for myself, and it's great information for the authors. It gives me a lot of pleasure to email authors and let them know how their books are doing. So that's another new feature we have on the site. I always think that taking features out is just as important as taking features in, as adding features in, because you want to make it as simple as possible, and that helps the maintenance in the long term. Some of the removed features, I've removed desktop keyboard controls on the menu. It used to be that you could hit escape to open and close the menu, and I've just taken that out for now, just to simplify the code a little bit. And I took favoriting out in version 2.1. I still feel that that's a lot easier to do just with your browser's bookmarks, like right here in the corner. I got my little bookmark button, and I just have a feeling that that is still going to be easier. So anything I can save on having to maintain is energy I can put into new features that people might enjoy more. There have been some other updates to the site, separate from this version 3. The first one is that the site uses a new style sheet called readable.css, and I think I'll show you a little bit of that. So, of course, to go back to the home page, I hit my home button here, and here is the site. Let me get it to normal size here. So readable.css was designed by a guy named Benjamin Holland, who I met on Mastodon, and it's supposed to be a very simple style sheet that's mobile responsive for building static sites. And I really liked it because it was fairly close to the style that I was going for, but I thought it did it more efficiently. And you can see it looks just about the same. This is stuff that I've added in. I like the tile look, and so I've added in my own style sheet rules for that. It's not a huge jump in terms of appearance. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Hope we're still good. I did this because it's one less thing to worry about. I can know that the site is going to look fine, and then that allows me to focus on how the ebooks look, or how the editor looks, that sort of thing. And so I've been very happy with it. I use it on my personal site as well, and look forward to seeing how it gets improved. So a big shout out to Benjamin Holland for his work on that. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a new FAQ page. That's a work in progress as I get questions about the site. And as with the last FAQ page, it will be licensed under the GFDL. I've also added, this is something kind of neat, there's custom error pages. So if there's an error on the site, instead of getting like a bare bones black text on a white background, it'll look like the other pages on the site. So hopefully you'll never have to see one of those pages, but if you do, it's going to look good. So to recap on version 3, a complete overhaul of the audiobook player, which I really feel is the best integration of ebooks and audiobooks anywhere on the web. I've been writing software for converting shanty text into physical books. I've introduced page hit tracking for ebooks. I've removed some of the keyboard controls for desktop. There's a new style sheet for the site, the main site, and a new FAQ page. I'll talk a little bit about some of my future plans. I'd like to get some additional analytics going, perhaps a way of more just making sure that a view counts as a view, that people couldn't spam and run the numbers up. That's something important. And I want to make sure I do that in a way that respects the privacy of the people, the readers of the site as well. For this new server-side scripting, I want to license it under the AGPL, so I'm not necessarily sure I want to do that for all the software that I run on the server, but definitely anything that readers or other customers are going to be interacting with. I want to make sure that's all transparent, because sadly on the web these days, there's really not a lot of transparency going around, is there? And then lastly, I've been putting quite a bit of time into how ebooks get sold on the site. We've had our first commercial release, and we monetized that by letting people pay to have their names added, or they could order the physical books. But I've been thinking of some things I could add to the server where you would have to pay to get access to the book. Now, absolutely, the books would still remain shareable. That's very important for me, that these books be easy to share, just like a physical book, and don't have all the strings attached as you might have with a book that you purchase from, say, the Kindle store. So my books won't have any DRM, and you can download them for offline reading, but perhaps if I could have a way that you have to pay to access the book on the site, that's something I think I could probably do. And that's something you'll see me working on this year. Let me know if you're interested in being a beta tester for that feature. So those are 3 things that I plan to work on. And there's some others, like server stuff. I've been talking with some people. A lot of people, some people have said it would be very convenient, for example, if you could, if your notes would go with you. Like, for example, if you're on your phone, you may take a note, and then you go to your desktop, the note would carry over. Right now, that's all saved locally on your device, which is a fairly private way of doing it. But some people might like the convenience of having it stored on a server. So I am looking into ways of doing that. It is kind of nice how the site doesn't require you to log in for anything. But if it gives some people more convenience, that's the way I would want to go. So really, that's what I have. I guess the one other thing I'd say, so as you may know, I named the versions of the software after characters from Moby Dick. The main JavaScript file that controls interactivity is called Ahab, because he's the captain. Version 1 we called Ishmael, of course. Second version was called Queequeg. And for this third one, since this is one of the major updates, but it's a small major update, if you know what I mean, I've decided to call it Pip, because Pip was the littlest sailor on the Pequod. So that's all I have for right now, and I will check here if anyone has any questions or comments. Let's see here. Thanks to everyone who shared info about this. Let's see. I'm just going to Hope that didn't... Let's see, a comment on IRC. Would like the keyboard shortcuts added back. For some people, it isn't a... Let's see. Those aren't for a hypothetical person who doesn't use a mouse or trackball or touchpad or joystick. The action menu is inaccessible. I think that's a fair point. If you put the escape key activation back into the code, you should call out the existence of that keyboard trigger in the text of the page too. I'll have to think. Well, I'll talk about how we could do that, but I think that's a fair point. And it would be fairly simple to add back in. That's something you could probably see within the month or so. Any other questions? I'll wait a little bit. Come over here to Arrowhead. Of course, this is the text editor for converting shanty text into a HTML document. And the way it works is that you put your text in on the left side, and then if I hit run, it loads it on the right side. Now let me show you if you wanted to add an audiobook. At the top here you have all your information about the book, like my title here, author, keyboard, license. And if I add audio, and then that lets it know to add an audio interface, but it won't work without audio files. So I'll add at audio here, and it needs the source file, so I'll just give it something here, some dummy text mp3, and then title I'll add just test. And if I hit run on the left side, now it has the audiobook section here, and I can bring it up, and there it is. So that's something new with version 3, and I will always keep working on this because I love you can have your ebooks and your audiobooks in one place. I think that's something very special, and I'll always be working on improving that. Let's see. Thank you for watching. I think that'll be about it. I'll see you next time. I plan to do a stream next week where I'll talk about the features of ebooks, and that would be a great one if you want to introduce... Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know about this. I don't know why this happens. I'll have to do some tests on that. But thank you for watching, and I'll do a stream next week. If someone is new to the platform or curious about it, it would be great to direct them to that stream, because that'll be a stream more for people new to the platform. But anyway, thank you so much, and I hope that you have a good night. And if you're in the Western U.S., I hope you stay warm. Thanks. Bye.